But it's Thursday. So you know that when it's Thursday, it is Man Up. And on my Man Up series today, we'll be talking about male grooming. And I've got a panel of what I call extraordinary men. I have Sir Bryson Glenn. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much.
I have the Dapper brother.
The Dapper brother.
Oh, yo, man.
The Dapper.
Potato.
The Dapper brother.
Let's get it right from the beginning.
I went to an international school, so I knew it as Dapper.
Oh, wow.
When I came to Kenya, I was told it's Dapper, so I'm adjusting.
That wasn't much of an international school, but it's all good, bro. Thank you so much for having me.
And of course, I've got Pastor George Macharia, lead pastor at A Light in the City. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me again.
We're going to start off a bit differently today. I want us to break some ice, eh? So what I'm starting you off with is a game called Start Stop. Before we get into the major conversation, it's a game called Start Stop. So Start Stop is very simple. I have letters from A to Z on a wheel. So I will spin that wheel, and you guys will have 8 seconds to tell me a boy's name, a country, a car make, a celebrity, and a school whose name starts with that letter. But because you're 3, we shall do it like this. We'll go 1, 1, 1, and then you guys can collectively think about the last 2. So far, the highest person who's come through has been a guy called Hansen from Uganda, and then the lowest so far has been Kambua. She got nothing. So you guys you're following up a high reputation. So I'm beginning to spin your wheel. I hope you guys get like Z. Z is usually my favorite letter, because nobody ever gets what Z is. Okay, gentlemen, your lucky letter is L. Pastor George, boy's name?
Lemuel.
Country? Car make?
Lamborghini.
Wow. Comic.
Car make?
We've got to do better than all these characters.
Celebrity?
Lil Kim.
And then the last one, but not least, a school.
Laser Hill.
Yes,
So you guys I've actually given you guys more than 8 seconds, huh? I've given you guys like 15 seconds.
Are you sure you were timing?
I was actually timing. I have a timer here. I was timing it. You guys have done that in 12 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Not so bad. But
Maloko Ligidogo.
I want us to jump right in now that we've gotten the game out of the way. Let's take our gloves off. It's just a candid conversation. Let's think of it as a conversation amongst brothers. It's just 4 brothers having a candid conversation. So be free to be as open as possible. Like, let it all out.
Okay.
Let it all out. Let's start with the first one in terms of, because I know especially with the Dapper brother and with Sir Glenn Bryson, you guys are into a lot of, how men dress. I mean, Glenn is here with a suit, 3-piece.
I think he's going for a TV interview with that.
3-piece suit, and then he's got 2 lapels on him, eh? I'm just like, bruh.
From a meeting.
So let's start with, how should a man dress? Glenn.
Well, wow, that's one of those questions that you actually don't have an exact answer. But then I think a man should dress in whatever way that they're comfortable in. So obviously dress for the occasion, and I think that's about it from my side, because if you can overdress and the occasion just needs you to put on shorts. You can't go to the beach in a suit.
Yeah. That would be extra. It would be like you're going to you're addressing a meeting at the beach.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for you, the Dapper brother, I mean, you're doing blogging and vlogging rather, and you've got a lot of stuff to do with a lot of fashion and all that. Have you found that the way you dress has sort of changed how people address you and talk to you?
Well, yes, it has. In fact, one of the challenges I had was convincing people that I just started dressing up just the other day when I started my blog. Because they look at me and they're like, wow, it's like you've been dressing like this your whole life. Nika ulikuwa unavaa suti na napi ukiwa mtoto.
like your pajamas are
I know.
or something, yeah?
Yeah, but the thing
pajamas are 3-piece.
Yeah. That's a nice one.
That's a good one.
The thing is, I believe that every man should dress up first comfortably and presentably. So once I changed my style from what I was wearing to this new figure that is the Dapper brother, I found that it is easy to get me into some doors that I wouldn't have gotten into back then, just based on the fact that I dress up and dress good.
And what made you have that change from before to now?
And for me, first of all, it's a funny story because I was going for my internship in university and I did not have any formal clothing, so I just it was crazy. So I just
you were pushing it, right? You were pushing it.
So it was crazy. I just jumped into Pinterest, and like a couple of months down the line, I was just interested into this whole thing that is men's fashion, so wide and so amazing. So I started dressing up, but then I got to a point where I couldn't find any inspiration from local content creators, so I decided, hey, let me try this out, and it was all uphill from there.
Yeah. And for you, Pastor George, because I know we're dressing well, we're looking good. How then should a man then talk to, let's start with fellow men, because sometimes you have guys who are talking to each other, we're mjingas, and you're like, bro, what? Like, tone down on the language. But then how then should a man talk? Let's start first with fellow men.
Definitely, one of the things that ought to be there in a conversation is respect for one another. That's the biggest thing in a conversation. And when you're beginning to address people, you should address people with respect. And so you shouldn't talk to people the way you feel like you ought to or you want to talk to them, but you should address them with respect. And so that's the one thing that that I would tell somebody especially, it says when you go before a king, what you do is that you put a knife to your throat. In other words, you sieve the words that you speak. And so every time you stand before people to speak, the one thing that should come across is that you should be a respectful person as you begin to address people. They shouldn't feel disrespected by the way you talk. Yes.
Maloko, where Kenyans come for the best new music.
Let's go.
Yeah. And one of the things I'll say, one of the things I found so difficult, especially amongst men, is to say words like thank you, kindly,
good night,
please,
bye,
and I'm sorry. Even a simple word like I am sorry.
Especially that one.
Like somebody, even when we hurt each other amongst men, I mean, let's be with them. I mean, there's a guy who's hurt me in my life. When I see him sometimes, I feel like throwing rocks at him. I'm like, bruh, what are you doing here? But that simple word like to say, you know what, fam, I'm sorry. I hurt you. Why is it difficult for that word to come out, the Dapper brother?
Well, I think, first of all, I think I'm very, very expressive, yeah? So what I find that people who find it hard to say such words showing gratitude and all are people who've been raised with that background that, you know, mwanaume ni kukangu. And that's, in my opinion, that's toxic masculinity. Because you find that, like, it leads to that point.
Toxic masculinity.
The brother man today was on that dictionary. He was like, I'm going to introduce this word, toxic masculinity.
Masculinity.
Y'all weren't ready.
We don't know. We wasn't.
And I find that goes a long way into also this day there's a lot of depression among young people, and it all boils back to the fact that guys can't really talk about their feelings. Guys can't, you know, show gratitude. You know, a small word like thank you, man. Bless you, I love you, brother. You know, like,
I love you too,
so
brother.
Hard. You know one of them clearly. So such things, I think it's just toxic masculinity that has been ingrained into people since from a young age.
So Glenn,
yes,
do you find it hard to tell another man I love you?
In fact, I actually do.
Really? Why do you find it hard to tell a bro I love you, brother, man?
I don't find it hard, It's just that when I feel like when they tell me back, I'm like, okay. That's a bit too far. You're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to say it back. Just know that maybe next time you'll come back and tell me, oh yeah, bro, I love you. And I'll be like, cheers, bro, cheers, thanks, eh?
But then it's just love amongst brothers. It's just like a brotherly love.
Yes.
I mean, if we're to go deep biblical, even when Paul would finish writing to Timothy, he would end with, I love you.
Yeah.
If we're to go a biblical direction.
Yeah.
And if you go in a family setup, a father tells his son, I love you.
Yeah.
In fact, it says greet one another with a holy kiss.
Exactly.
Now,
So
I
we should
can
be
only
kissing
imagine.
each other.
No.
It's a holy kiss. Even like on the cheek.
On the cheek.
Like, hi,
cannot
my
work.
brother.
No, I think it's the same thing that the Dapper brother just said right now. It's a bit of a toxic masculinity in regard to how the society has placed men as non-emotional beings. You know, we are put up in a space where we are forced to kaa ngumu. You know, you can't really express emotion, and that I think that really makes gents even now, say for example, lash out to someone because maybe they didn't express themselves, because penginally feel, if I say something, wow, what will this person think about me? Am I soft? Am I becoming girly now? Am I going to stop being a man because I expressed myself? So people are afraid because they normally, some guys normally feel judged low-key, but then they can't really show it. You see, because the society has also kind of placed men in this platform where you have to just be strong. Unalia kuja ndakutuna tena uliendele kulia basi go and kaa ngumu somewhere else.
And for you, Pastor George, I know that you're married.
Yes.
How often do you tell your wife I'm sorry? I'm throwing you in the deep here.
I hope Pauline is listening.
I actually do say that I am sorry a lot because I guess in the relationship I'm the one who normally is on the wrong.
See how he's wise
normally,
over there.
yeah.
He is like
you've got to understand that different cultures create different different environments create different cultures, and some of the cultures that we've found ourselves in are the homes that we've been brought up in, where we never saw our fathers, if you may, or our elder brothers saying sorry for something that they had done that was wrong, or coming clean and admitting to a mistake. And so a culture has been formed for years before I can get married, and so the people who have modeled a certain culture in my life, at one point or the other, I never saw them saying they were sorry. And so that informs a lot of what I am going to do in the future, based on what I have seen. Do you know that one of the greatest way that we learn is through observation? When we observe things, we learn even more. Do you know that children hardly listen to you, but mostly observe exactly what you do? So how I treat my wife today will determine how my son treats women in the future. And so I want to form a culture in him, so much so that he is able to express himself fully to his wife to be in the future.
Hey, Pastor George, you're thinking far. Your son is like 3 years old. You are thinking
prophesy.
It's called vision.
My friend, even God says that 1,000 years are like one day to him. So yes, but yes, I'm able to say sorry, and it's because of the people who have mentored me in life. I have seen them saying sorry when they were wrong. They admit a mistake.
You know, one of the most interesting things, like in the house I grew up in, and especially with my father, surprisingly enough, when my dad wronged you and you confronted him, he would say, I'm sorry.
That is it.
He would literally tell me, Sonny, I'm sorry. I would look at him like,
are you sure?
Like,
are you sure?
You're
supposed to smack me. But you see, now it becomes easy for you, Chito, to say sorry to someone when they wrong you, or easily come clean and admit a certain mistake, simply because it has been modeled to you. And that's why to every other person and every other man who is listening to us, we've got to model what we want to see in our children. We've got to model it ourselves. If you want that boy to be able to say sorry to someone, you've got to begin to say sorry yourself. You understand?
Yes.
Because we are men and sometimes we make mistakes. And
Kwanzaa, he said that word, mistakes. When we get back, we need to dive into some of the mistakes that men make.
Maloko, where Kenyans come for the best new music.
let's go.
On Kiss.
Bryson, when you just go to Sir Glenn's Instagram, you will know why he's here. A brother man is too late. He dresses up too late. But before we're talking about, we're talking about like words.
Yes.
And for me, one of the words in my house that we grew up with, like my dad always said, I love you.
Yes.
Now, I remember this one time, I have a baby brother, one brother only. And he used to come and tell me, hey, Chito, I love you. And I'll get nagged. I was a teenager. All I wanted was to play video games.
Yes.
Like, don't stress me with you, I love you. So I never used to respond.
Yes.
Do you know, there are 3 times when my father has raised his voice in a way that is like, I hear like, Chito. And then I know things I think it was, and that's one of the times. I was like, yo, bro, what's up? He's like, tell the boy you love him too. I was like, so you are calling me in this deep voice so that I tell a kid I love him too. And surprisingly enough, now we say it without even being told. It just comes out of you. And it comes down to some of the things that we were talking earlier on. We started talking about mistakes.
Yes.
Some of the mistakes that men make. Because now here you are, you've seen this amazing lady. When Cheki, you're like, oh my God, this girl, Nimedai. I want her. Hashtag Ikufa.
Hashtag,
And you approach her.
Yeah.
What are some of the mistakes that men make in that process of you see a girl that you love and you approach her? One of them I hate is when a man whistles at a woman. I find it, I'm like, she's not a dog.
No.
You can't whistle at a human being.
You can't.
The Dapper brother.
Yeah, you can't be catcalling people right, left, and center. First of all, the biggest mistake I see men doing, especially in this day and age, is that men feel like they have a lot of options. With the advent of social media, the things like Tinder, you just swipe and you
Swipe left,
like,
swipe right.
Like the choices are in your hands. So when they see a girl who they want, they feel entitled that girl should want them back, and they go there so aggressively, demanding for their availability, and maybe that chick isn't really into you. So that's the biggest challenge. I think men feel like they have unlimited options.
And what are some of the mistakes you have made as the Dapper brother? When you look back today, you're like, hey, had that situation been handled like this?
Oh man.
Wow, personally, like I was saying during the segue, we men need to apologize even when it's the women that have done the wrong thing, because sometimes you are in that place where yes, I'm on the wrong, but in order for this relationship to flourish, I need to apologize. And maybe when she cools down, she'll get to that point where she can see that yes, she was wrong, and then she'll come approach you and be like, okay, I was wrong, but then I apologize. And she'll respect you for that. So that's something I've learned, especially in my current relationship. Sometimes just let my ego down. Like there's no room for ego in a relationship between two consenting adults. So
Glenn Bryson, when it comes to how you've seen men approaching women, what are some of the common mistakes
that I've spotted? Oh wow.
Or even that you have made, bruh. Let's be honest. We've all made a couple of mistakes here and there.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, let me start with what I've seen. Like I think some men out there objectify ladies so much, and it's about the same. It revolves around the same thing that the Dapper brother just said right now. They feel entitled that this person should kind of have an interest, not even maybe like them, but just have an interest in whatever this guy has to offer. So guys tend to be a bit aggressive towards that approach, and it ends up backfiring on them. And that's why now you hear this so-and-so lady was either beaten up or something just because she couldn't submit to this random stranger who didn't want any stories with her. You get? Now, for me, I think I to some extent I've read so much into some situations, and it's probably gotten me into stuff. Or
have you been in a relationship on your own? One of those scenarios where you approach a mama and then you're like, you think she's like with you in the relationship, but she's you alone. Like, she doesn't see. Did that happen to you?
Yeah, Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So, long story short.
How long were you in that relationship?
Oh wow, it was the most.
At your home?
I wouldn't.
Whole side.
I wouldn't really call it a relationship. Yeah, let me call it a situationship
Yeah.
or something that it's a word that has been floating around.
Yes.
It was more of you're in the relation. I mean, sorry, you're dating that person, but that person isn't dating you. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes. It
So
does.
yeah, it's
Perfectly
just
said. Perfectly.
you're by yourself, bro.
Yeah.
Like it's just you and your bros. The rest, the lady's just there for. I mean, like she's either whatever that you are to her, that's whatever that she uses to say fuel or whatever that you may call it.
Yes.
In her life, and well, other than that. Being in a relationship by yourself is not a good thing. Let me tell you one thing, and I don't know if there's anyone maybe on the trending hashtag that you have at the moment. People can say what situations they've gotten themselves into. Maybe we can also have the same kind of discussion here.
Yes.
Yeah. So that you can avoid such situations with men, because the outcome of that is that men end up either hating ladies if you don't really know how to handle such a situation, how to really cleanly get out of such a situation. You'll end up viewing ladies in a different manner, that which maybe even in the end you'll regret. And if you don't have the right counsel, I mean, I thank God I have someone like Pastor George. Me naweza nanimlilie, like I'm like, yo, wah.
So you
We'll get into that.
All the hits, all the time.
And just I want to get us into another space, because earlier on we got into a conversation about aggression and how men become aggressive. And for you, Pastor George, what I'd like to find out from you is then we've spoken about this man who is well dressed. He now knows how to address women. He knows how to carry himself out in a relationship. He's learned how to say, I'm sorry, I love you, kindly do this, please do that. How then does this man still end up becoming abusive in a relationship?
There are a couple of things that come to play. And as I said, number one is his, if you would, his mirror of relationship in the past, in his past life, if you may, in his childhood. What mirrored relationships for him? How did he see his father, or the man that he purportedly looked up to? How did he perceive that man handle conflict and conversations? Now, as we get into a space of, and especially a marriage situation, we take people through what we would call premarital counseling. And one of the things that we talk about in that premarital counseling is that we talk about conflict resolution, because definitely conflicts are going to be there in relationship. How do you handle anger in a relationship? How do you express that your feelings without necessarily being aggressive towards your partner in regard to what you're feeling at the moment? How do you handle some of those things? Now, one of the things that you asked, that is a mistake that you see men making in regard to getting into a relationship, is that sometimes we get into relationships when we are not prepared. What do I mean by this? We're not prepared mentally. And so we are still, or maybe you've come from a certain background and you are not yet prepared to handle another responsibility in your life. And you know, responsibility does come with pressure. And sometimes when that pressure comes, how do you then handle the pressure that is coming towards you? When you are a man and maybe you don't know how to handle certain pressures, that's why you find men becoming abusive, thinking that this woman is the one bringing pressure in my life, and in regard wanting to shut her down. And so maybe the best way they can do that is by being aggressive towards that woman. To others, they are mentally unstable. They're mentally unstable at the same time. They have anger issues. Because you see, aggression is brought entirely by unmanaged anger.
In fact, now that you're mentioning anger issues, I want you to address yourself, Pastor George. Have you ever had a challenge with your anger?
One of the yes.
Yes. I saw it. I was like, no, Passy, come back.
First.
Yes.
And how?
Yes.
And what made you realize that you had a problem with your anger?
One of the things is overreaction. That and you see, anger does not necessarily have to mean that you have to hit someone.
Yes, that's
sometimes it's in the way you talk. Is in the words that come about. Is when you speak words that are unbecoming. You understand? They could be abusive. Others are not abusive words, but yet the feel behind those words is that there's so much aggression that your partner has to shut down at that point. You understand?
Yes.
So how then do you deal with this anger? Is that you've got to begin, number one, address the root of where this anger is coming from. Sometimes I could lash back at somebody, but I'm not lashing back especially at what that person has done. I'm lashing back at something that they did about 2 weeks ago. And that thing was not addressed, was not discussed, was not resolved. And so I what do? I take it forward. And so I'm waiting for another opportunity. And now what happens is that after you have compiled all those anger instances, the day that you will bring them out, you will bring them out with such aggression that your partner, that you might do something that you will not be proud of. Yes.
And so the Dapper brother enforcer, Sir Glenn Bryson Sather. Hey, I've called you Glenn Sather.
What's happening?
And so when it comes to your relationships, let me not even say just with women, but even with men as well. Have you ever found yourself in a space where you can feel you're getting aggressive? You can feel like it's almost becoming physical. Maybe you've pushed each other around once or twice. The Dapper brother?
Oh, personally, I have never fought in my life.
Are you serious?
I've never been into
even in high school, bruh.
Even in high school.
Hey, I beat up a few people in high school. I won't even lie. I beat up a few people in high school.
I've always been that guy who walks away. The bigger man.
Wow.
I've always been that guy, and I never let it get to a point whereby naskia say aminifika hapa, the way guys say. So for me, I think, yes, I do get mad. I do get so angry. And the thing is, when I get angry, I just shut down. Because I don't want to say something that hurts you or do something that makes you look at me in another light.
Yeah. But isn't that dangerous? Because
it is dangerous.
You're holding it in.
I know, like in my relationship, and I'm very blessed to have
Now we know where he's from.
Now we know.
You're what? You mean me as a pastor, I taught you that one? No.
And I'm very, very blessed to have a beautiful lady in my life who doesn't allow that in our relationship. It's like, no, you're mad. No, we are not moving away from this. We are handling it and we are solving it right now. So I think that's like a perfect match in my opinion. Because if we were both those people who just shut down and shut everything out, that would have been very, very dangerous.
Because for me, I think the two scenarios that I've had in my life where I lashed out. First one was when I was a kid. So we're at the playground. I can't remember what this guy. I really can't remember what he said about my mom. All I heard is a guy disrespected my mother.
Your mother.
And then I got suspended for like 2 weeks. And the second one I had was when I was in school in South Africa. I was in a school called the Web Primary School. We're only 2 black students in the whole school. So my dad was coming to pick me up. So where the playground was in such a way that you can see the drive-through. So my dad comes to pick me up, right? And then this guy says, "How is your dad driving that car? He's stolen it." And then he was a white boy and he was on the swing. You know that moment when the guy goes back on the swing? I was waiting for him to come. I just jumped. Boom, boom, boom. But one of the things that I think personally helped me over the years is, interestingly enough, all the years my father has been married to my mom, I've never heard him raise his voice at her. Like shouting, hey, mama, never. So I think it put me in a position where, like you were saying, where you learn through experience. You look at somebody and you start asking yourself, like, wait, if that doesn't do this, then clearly I should begin to check myself. I should begin to walk the walk as a man. Because even when it comes to us kids, my dad doesn't raise his voice.
Yeah.
His voice just goes deeper. It becomes then you know,
You're in trouble here.
It's fire. Or there's that look that you're given and you correct yourself instantly. And I found myself to be leaning towards that after seeing a lot of that experience, especially with seeing it from an elderly man. And for you, Sir Bryson, have you had a moment of aggression?
Well, okay.
Tell us.
No, I'm so glad that the upbringing that I've been, like, okay, the people that brought me up, they taught me one thing: patience. I think when it comes to anger, patience plays a huge role, because if you aren't patient, you won't give yourself room to understand all the situations. You'll just understand things from your point of view, and you won't want to understand anything from anyone's perspective. And that's how lashing out comes out from within yourself, you get. So I think I've been taught that, other than discipline in a manner that fighting is never, or trying to fight for a few things is never always a solution. You guys can talk about it, be civil about it, you know. And having said that, in my opinion, or rather, sorry, from my past experience, when it comes to that point where I need, or I feel the need to lash out, I really hold back. I relax. I actually take water, and then
it has a process.
Actually,
process. Hold back, take water.
I take water. I say the tiniest prayer that I can ever say, legit, every time, and I'm like, no, okay, now listen to the other person. You get, listen to this person. What do they have to say then about the situation? And what happens while I do that, I block out every mentality, everything. Like, imagine your brain is blank. You have no thoughts, you have no idea, you don't even know what you'll do then in the next 5 minutes. That's what I normally do. And then I open up my mind to this person's ideas or whatever that they're going to say. And then now from there on, I see how it's going to be sorted. If it's going to be a back and forth, then I'm like, okay, you know what, fine, let me pull the rope. We'll talk about it when you've calmed down.
Wow, that's a powerful process.